I know we do a lot of World War II stories on this podcast, but this one was too weird to pass up. We almost had bats armed with bombs. No, seriously, that almost happened. Let's learn about it on a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True. Welcome back to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds made up, but it's really true. Part of the WCBE podcast experience, available also on NPR. My name is Michael Kent. This is episode 228. I hope you had a great week last week. Thanks for listening again. Since last time I talked to you, I added my 49th state, Utah. Had a show there, so now that's 49 states I've performed in. I just need Wyoming now, and we'll have the full set. By the way, Salt Lake is beautiful. I was very impressed with downtown Salt Lake City. This week I head to Hershey, PA, and then on March 28 and 29, I'll be headlining Keller's Magic and Comedy Club. That's in Erie, PA. If you're in Erie, PA, you can get tickets online at kellersmagic.com. And then on Sunday the 30th, I'll be doing a matinee in Salamanca, New York at the Ray Evans Theater to benefit the Empire Animal Rescue Society. But for now, I'm home here in the C-Bus, bringing you a brand new episode. Later on, we've got Jonathan Burns on the show. He'll be joining us for the Yap Yap session and the quiz, so stay for that. If you're a fan of the show and you love listening every week, please consider becoming an official Tiziter online at Patreon. You just go to patreon.com/Michael Kent. You join at any level you want. That's the best way to support this show. I really do appreciate all the folks we've got over there on Patreon. Once again, patreon.com/Michael Kent. So let's get into this week's episode. We're going to go back to 1942. In the history of militaries around the world, there have been some ideas that seem crazy when we look at them through a modern lens. One of them that comes to mind is the Camel Corps that was developed in the late 19th century. We did an episode about that one. But there have been other strange ideas that never actually saw combat. One of them was an aircraft carrier made out of ice. An unsinkable aircraft carrier made of a combination of wood pulp and ice was planned by the British, and a prototype was actually built in Canada. It was incredibly expensive to build and very impractical, so that project was never implemented. The U.S. Army once tried to build a hover jeep. It was a jeep that could fly like a helicopter over landmines. That was impossible to control, crazy expensive. Then during the Cold War, the CIA implanted listening devices into a cat to spy on the Soviets. The first test run failed when the cat was released and promptly hit by a car. So that project was then scrapped. And there are dozens of examples of these crazy-sounding ideas that have never seen the light of day. One of them occurred during World War II. Around 1942, the American military wanted to find a way to guide their bombs once they were dropped from a plane. So a famous behaviorist, B.F. Skinner, trained a bunch of pigeons to ride on the inside of a nose cone of a bomb and peck at a small target that would then turn the bomb's direction. Now, of course, later in the war, radio-guided bombs were invented and used, so Project Pigeon was scrapped. And around that same time that scientists were working with training pigeons, another winged creature was being looked at to see if they could help with the war effort. It started from an unlikely source, a civilian dentist, Lytle S. Adams. He was friends with Eleanor Roosevelt, and it's a good thing he was, because otherwise his crazy idea would have probably never been heard of or taken seriously. Adams was a Pennsylvanian who had been vacationing at Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico. While in the caverns, he was struck with an idea. While Adams was a dentist by trade, he spent a lot of time thinking up inventions. In the 20s and 30s, he had tried to develop an airmail system to get mail to and from low-income and rural areas. But this new idea was all about what he found in that cave. He looked around and saw hundreds of hibernating Mexican free-tailed bats, otherwise known as Brazilian free-tailed bats, on the walls and the ceilings of the cave. He was incensed about the recent bombing of Pearl Harbor and was thinking of ways the U.S. could make their revenge. Seeing the bats, Adams thought that if there was a way to put incendiary devices on these animals, they could be sent into Japan to roost on the walls and ceilings of buildings there and remotely cause chaos and destruction to Japanese cities. Again, this idea would have been considered crazy if any old person off the street brought it to the White House. But Lytle had the ear of the First Lady. He also had influence in Washington that he had gained during his airmail project in the previous decades, and he was determined to use this influence to get his bat idea off the ground. In addition to the First Lady, Adams' idea got another supporter. Donald Griffin was a researcher who had pioneered studies on the echolocation abilities of bats, and Donald Griffin happened to work for the National Defense Research Committee, which was a group tasked with coordinating, supervising, and conducting scientific research to improve and invent new methods of warfare. So when Griffin heard Adams' bat bomb idea, he endorsed it to the President of the United States. Lytle S. Adams had written an abstract of his idea, espousing the bat as the lowest of the low creatures. He argued that, quote, reasons for its creation have remained unexplained, end quote, and bats were created by God to await this hour to play their part in the scheme of free human existence and to frustrate any attempt of those who dare desecrate our own way of life, end quote. With the First Lady and Donald Griffin as advocates for Adams, Roosevelt took the idea seriously. He must have known what the public might say because FDR's exact words were, quote, this man is not a nut. It sounds like a perfectly wild idea, but is worth looking into, end quote. Not only was the idea looked into, it was quickly put into development. We'll talk about it after a quick break. If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael.
Hey, I'm Cliff Baumgartner.
And I'm Harrison Stewart.
If you're like us, you probably grew up watching the Discovery Channel classic, Mythbusters.
From rocket cars to chicken cannons, Mythbusters proved there's no question too big, too small, or too ridiculous to put to the test.
Now we're going back to rewatch the show from episode 1, and we want you to follow along. Join us as we revisit every single myth, moment, experiment, and explosion from throughout the show's legendary 14 seasons. Subscribe now so you don't miss one.
I'm John DeSando, host of Back Talk. This podcast is an extension of the long-running, award-winning movie review show, It's Movie Time. Back Talk features additional content and banter with guests about new movies. If you want more insight and information about what's playing now in theaters and online, find Back Talk at the WCBE Podcast Experience on WCBE.org. You'll be happy you did.
There was a time that humans used 100% organic products as healing balms and moisturizers for their skin. Well, I've partnered with an awesome company that wants to get back to those times. Fatco sells organic and responsibly made tallow-based skincare products. For centuries, humans used tallow in skin moisturizers and healing balms, but unfortunately, the topical application of these fats seemed to stop around the same time that animal fats stopped being considered part of a healthy diet. A lot of modern skincare products do more harm than good by stripping your skin of its natural oils. Let's change that. You can try them out now at fatco.com and get 15% off your order by using my promo code INTERNET. Go to theinternetsaysitstrue.com/deals for the link. Franklin Roosevelt, with urging from his wife Eleanor and National Defense Research Committee member Donald Griffin, set the bat bomb program into motion by recommending it to the Army Air Force. Lytle S. Adams, the man who devised the idea in the first place, headed up the project, even though he had no zoological or military experience. He put together a team of people to help bring the idea to fruition. That team included a former hotel manager, a former gangster turned TV actor, and a mammologist, Jack von Blocher. Some of these people actually enlisted in the Army to join the project, and Adams was given authority to make them non-commissioned officers. The goal was to find a way to attach incendiary devices to bats who would be released into Japanese cities and burn down the buildings. Many of the Japanese buildings were made of paper and wood and were highly flammable. Initially, they wanted to use white phosphorus as the incendiary material, but when Louis Feaser was added to the project, he convinced them to use his new invention. It was a substance that mixed fuel with a sort of gel. He had named it napalm. So it was determined that the bats would carry napalm. The napalm would be put into a small cellulose payload carrier and attached to the front of the bat's chest with glue. As for the bats themselves, it was determined that the Mexican free-tailed bat would be the best type to use, the same ones that Adams had seen in Carlsbad Caverns. They started collecting bats from the caves of New Mexico and Texas, and a total of between 6,000 and 7,000 bats were initially rounded up. They had ventured into these caves with giant nets and used smoke to get them to leave their roosting places on the cave walls and ceilings. Now it was essential that the bats would be forced into hibernation to be transported and loaded up with napalm, so they put the bats into ice cube trays in refrigerated vehicles, which artificially triggered their hibernation response and made them easy to handle. The napalm payload they put on each bat was about the size of a walnut, about half an ounce of material. But how would they deploy the bats? They couldn't just drop them loose from a high-flying B-29. What the team came up with was sort of a bomb-looking carrier for the bats. It was about 5 feet long and looked like a bomb. But inside the carrier would be 1,040 bats. The bomb would be dropped from a plane, and at an altitude of around 4,000 feet off the ground, the carrier would deploy a parachute to slow its descent. When it got around 1,000 feet off the ground, a door on the carrier would open, allowing the bats to fly out. As part of the release mechanism, a 30-minute fuse would be ignited on each bat, and this would give the bats enough time to naturally find places to roost inside the buildings before the napalm would ignite. Once the bats were collected and the carrier containers were built, it was time to test. With 8,000 bats now collected and prepared, and millions more that could potentially be harvested from caves, they started some test runs at Carlsbad Army Airfield Auxiliary Air Base in New Mexico. At first, they had a problem figuring out the right temperature to force the bats to hibernate, because when the carrier would drop to 1,000 feet and open, the bats would fall out, having never woken up. Or if they did wake up, they would fly off and end up far off target. Another issue was with the bats' mating rituals. If a female bat became pregnant, the male bats refused to eat, and because of this, the program had to be run when the bats weren't in mating season, which limited them to 5 months out of the year. By May of 1943, the program was in full testing phase and a huge setback happened. During a test on May 15, armed bats were accidentally released at a time they shouldn't have been. They flew underneath a fuel tank to roost and blew up part of the test range at Carlsbad. At this point, the Army was ready to just give up on the project, so they handed it off to the Navy, who expressed interest and continued the testing under a new name, Project X-Ray. By December, they were over it. They passed it off to the Marines and moved the bats and the equipment to the Marine Air Base at El Centro, California. From this airport, they were tested at a fake Japanese village that had been built in the deserts of Utah. After that testing, one officer remarked, "A reasonable number of destructive fires can be started in spite of the extremely small size of the units." In this case, the units means bats. The main advantage of the units would seem to be their placement within the enemy structures without the knowledge of the householder or fire watchers, thus allowing the fire to establish itself before being discovered. Expressed in another way, the regular bombs would give probably 167 to 400 fires per bomb load, where X-ray would give 3,625 to 4,748 fires. The project was approved, and it was decided that Project X-Ray would be carried out in war, ready to go by mid-1945. The total cost spent on the project at that point was $2 million, equivalent to $35 million in modern dollars. All the while, the United States was conducting devastating firebombing campaigns in Japan. They dropped 1,700 tons of incendiaries on Tokyo just in March of 1945, and after that did the same in more than 60 different Japanese cities, killing hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians and displacing millions. The Bat Bomb Project X-Ray would have done the same with less bombs and less flights needed. But as the project was moving so slowly, we're talking 3 years of development so far since it was thought up by Lytle S. Adams, it was soon surpassed by another technology. By that August, the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Less than 2 weeks later, Japan surrendered and Project X-Ray was scrapped entirely. The people involved in Project X-Ray said that they never really considered the ethical problem of killing thousands and potentially millions of bats for the project. Not only were they preoccupied with avenging Pearl Harbor, they didn't see the bats as valuable. But viewed through today's lens, the idea is absolutely crazy, and I'm betting you didn't know how close it came to actually happening. It seems fake, but the internet says it's true. It's time for Yap Yap with me and a friend. Today I'm calling Jonathan Burns. Jonathan is one of my oldest friends in show business. He's a comedian who uses physicality and contortionism in his act, along with a little magic, and he's been seen all over television. He's one of the favorite guests of this podcast, so we're happy to have him back. He's joining us from a cruise ship. What's going on, man?
You're gonna put sound effects in here, right? For their cheering?
No, there's not going to be cheering.
No sound. Okay, well they can make their own sound effects. Hopefully, I'll wait till they're done, until they settle down.
You're such a celebrity on that ship, you just expect cheering everywhere you go?
That's right. That's right. I did have my shows here last night, and
Nice. So today
yes,
you're
it was a
everyone's
lot.
friend.
Everyone knows me, but it's funny that I picked a young girl volunteer named Gemma, who basically took over the show and stole it from me.
Good.
By the end of it, she was I had to lead her off the stage with slices of cheese. I kept throwing slices of cheese over her head, leading her closer and closer to the steps. Get her
That's
off
really
the
funny.
get off the stage. So yeah, Gemma is the real star. I work for her now.
That's good. So you've been on a million times. You know how this goes. Is there a
That's
fact
right.
that
I'm
you
here for the money.
That's
Let's
right.
spin the wheel for big money.
Yeah, all of the money. The I like to have my guests ask me a fact that maybe they think I don't know, but every time you come on here, you seem to already have a guess of what you think the podcast is about. You know, I think it's the thing that you just don't like to be surprised. You're trying to get ahead of it and guess.
I think.
what
I
we're
like to
talking
do
about
my
today.
research. I like to be prepared, and the fact that I don't know what I'm about to be quizzed on, it concerns me. So I was thinking, oh, this SNL 50th just happened, and these are all going to be stories about Chevy Chase.
Ooh, no, that's not what this is about at all. But do you have like a Chevy Chase factoid or something for me?
Well, did you know, Michael Kent, that Chevy Chase was the original drummer for Steely Dan?
Wait, is that real?
That is real. So in college, he played with the two guys from Steely Dan, and he was their drummer. And he went on to a different career, and they went
Wow.
on to play, dad jazz rock.
Wow. I did not know that. I love Steely Dan.
That's right. And I'm ready
that's
for
how you know
all
I'm in
the
my
Chevy
40s.
Chase questions you have for me.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I
Or
don't
Steely
have any.
Dan. I can answer a couple of Steely Dan factoids too if you need it.
Did you read the story about what he said to the guy who made the Saturday Night movie? Or no, it was the guy who played Chevy Chase in the Saturday Night movie.
No, what did he say?
You should be embarrassed. That was his only comment after watching a preview.
Yeah, I feel like if you know anything about Chevy Chase, it's like that. I think that's like a badge of honor.
That's exactly what he said. That's exactly what the actor
Yeah,
said.
I
And
think-
I can't think of his name offhand, but the actor said, I got my own Chevy Chase moment there. That's like something.
Yes,
that I have
that's the
just for
story
myself.
forever. And yeah, it's like being made fun of by Don Rickles. Like
Exactly.
you don't want him to compliment you and be genuine for
The
sure.
difference is Chevy probably actually means it.
Yeah, it's almost like he's another like Larry David-esque, like curmudgeon at times too. So I think that's just kind of like that's what you want. You want Larry David to just look at you and like in disdain.
Yeah.
I think
I thought it was
I think it's part of the fun.
As we've talked about, I saw the Saturday Night movie, and Chevy was great in it, and so was Aykroyd. They had some really great actors. Belushi was amazing in it. It was just fantastic. All of those.
That was like one of those ones where I knew the ending. I know the show goes on, and I know it's successful, but the
Right.
whole time it was very tense, and I was worried. I'm like, is it going to happen? They're getting really close to it's being live, and it happens. It's
It
great.
does such a great job of capturing the chaos that happened, and probably not quite as chaotic, but still happens on on Saturday night.
Well, I was on this past season of America's Got Talent, and I did live TV, and it was like that, I mean, like they were like, all right, millions of people are going to see you in 2 minutes, and you have to stand here and just be ready for that, and we're going to point at you, and you have to start talking because you're going to be on live TV.
Right.
And I only had my act was only 3 or 4 minutes at that point, but I can't imagine doing a whole 90-minute show like that, and week
can't imagine.
after week.
I've only done live stuff on local TV. and I actually love it. It makes my heart race, and I really like it. And I'm the first few times I did it, I can remember being like super super nervous to like be accurate with the time and everything. And then I realized I'm always on with a host or like a reporter of some sort, and so it's sort of their job to do that, and I can just sort of fill the space as much as I can. And
Yeah, you're there running the show, but you're just there to add things to it. Yeah, that is fun. I just saw a clip today. It was like Chris Helmsworth was in the background, this woman doing the weather, and he just pops in and does the weather with her. Like
that's fun.
like he wasn't supposed to be there. She's happy to see them. They cut to the reporters in the studio, and they're like, they couldn't believe he was there, and
she's
he
like,
had fun with it.
Or not local Grammy, local, what is it? Emmy, local Emmy.
Yeah.
Daytime
It was
Emmy.
in Australia, so I mean,
Grammy.
Grammy.
Nar.
Emmy.
For question one, we're going to play for a joke. So if you get it wrong, you got to tell me a joke. If you get it right, I will tell you a joke. In 1942, an unlikely type of bomb was being developed to help the U.S. strike back at Japan. Which one of these things was inside the bomb? Was it A, pheromones, B, snakes, or C, bats?
1942. That's weird because Chevy Chase wasn't born until October 8th, 1943. Let's see. 1942. A bomb full of pheromones.
The answer, bats. The bomb was full of bats, and they had glued tiny amounts of napalm to the chests of the bats. These were bats that were meant to fly into Japanese buildings and burn them. Disgusting.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty awful.
Bats.
Not pheromones. Although, I think it was in the maybe the Vietnam War. There is a war where we experimented with attacking our enemy with pheromones to try to make them gay. That is a thing that the U.S. Army spent money on back in the day.
Wow.
So, yeah,
wow.
Not far off there.
I would attack the ladies in middle school with my pheromones. But I just wasn't wearing deodorant.
Oh, hey-o. What, you got a joke for me? That was a good enough joke. I mean, that kind of counts.
All right, next.
Moving on. For question 2, we're going to play for a pet bat. I'm gonna send you a pet bat if you get it right.
All right. Yeah. What kind of bat? Like a vampire or a fruit?
It's going to be a Mexican free-tailed bat from the walls of Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico.
Oh, that is very specific.
Yes, it is. The bat's name, coincidentally, is Chevy Chase.
Whoa!
Which country?
Did you know that Chevy was the name that his grandmother gave him, but his actual name is Cornelius Crane Chase?
Now, someone said, did someone say that during the 50th? His actual name?
Cornelius? Maybe.
I don't remember them saying Cornelius, but Crane sounds familiar. I feel like they actually used his actual name.
Cornelius Crane Chase.
In paying credit to him during the SNL 50 show. So I did not know that. Cornelius Crane. I wonder why he would change it. Here's your question.
Maybe that's why he's so quick to attack people. He's just like used to people making fun of him for being named Cornelius.
Yeah, if he makes fun of them first, they can't really hit him on the name thing.
That's right, just like a bat pheromone.
Yes. Which country developed the first operational guided bomb in World War II? Was it A, Germany, B, the United States, or C, Switzerland using precision cheese guided technology?
I'm going to go with A, Germany.
The answer is A, Germany. They introduced, this sounds made up, but this is true, which is the theme of this show. The bomb's name was the Fritz X. They named it Fritz X. You can't see this unless you're on Patreon, but Jonathan just gave a thumbs up and fireworks went off in his background.
That's right.
Don't know how he did it, but maybe that's a Zoom thing. We were just talking about how when you have problems on Zoom now in 2025, you just leave them because it's not 2020 anymore when we had to fix them.
So, whatever.
Yeah. This successfully sank the Italian battleship Roma. It was one of the first precision-guided weapons, paving the way for modern smart bombs. Craziness.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, now I won. So do I get the bat, or does that mean you won't send me a bat?
No, you do get the bat. The bat isn't a penalty. The bat is a prize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Man, I should have said Switzerland.
It'll be at home with Lauren and the girls when you get back from your
When I get
cruise.
back.
Yeah, they'll.
Oh, by the way, there's a package coming for me. Don't open it. Or maybe open it.
It was making noises when it first came, but it stopped making noises now. And then you open it. And
Don't shake it, kids.
For question 3, we're going to play for a sticker. It says the internet says it's true. And it's a sticker.
And it's upside down.
Yeah, what strange psychological weapon did the British consider using against German soldiers? One of these is real. This is a weapon they considered. A bomb filled with stink gas to ruin morale. B, a haunted gramophone that played ghostly whispers at night. Or C, a hypnosis radio signal meant to convince enemy troops they were sleepy. One of these is actually true.
Okay, so hypnosis, ghosts, or
stink bomb.
What was the first? Stink bomb. Ah, I do love a stink bomb. I'm going hypnosis.
The answer is stink bomb.
Yeah.
I meant to hit this button because you didn't get it. Oh my God! Is this a Zoom? What are you doing? He put his thumbs down and it rained in his cabin of his cruise ship.
Yep.
The British explored using odor-based chemical weapons to make enemy soldiers miserable and demoralized. One idea was a stink bomb that smelled so foul it would make soldiers abandon their posts. It was never deployed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, did you know that Chevy Chase turned down the leading roles in National Lampoon's Animal House, Ghostbusters, American Gigolo, American Beauty, and Forrest Gump?
Wow. I think I had only heard Ghostbusters. They wanted him to be a Ghostbuster, but they wanted him to be an Animal House, which makes sense because that was a National Lampoon's thing, and he was in with those people. Yeah. Forrest Gump, he would have been in his 60s, right? 70s. Right. No, he's in his 70s now, so he'd have been in his 60s to be. But probably was. I don't know. I mean, he's probably a little bit older than Tom Hanks, but not a ton.
Yeah, I think that's a very different movie. National Lampoon's Forrest Gump. It's a very different movie.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So was it Forrest or was he as another role that they had him for? Was he playing Kennedy?
My research did not go that deep.
Bubba?
Bubba.
Chevy Chase as Bubba.
Bubba. Hey, shrimp cocktail.
It actually would work. It's a very Fletch thing. Like the shrimp rants would be a very Fletch type of.
Yeah. My name is Bubba.
For question 4, we're going to play for a souvenir from your city. So beautiful Lancaster, Pennsylvania has, I assume, many wonderful souvenirs, many things that you can send. What was the most common cause of World War II planes being shot down outside of battle?
Oh, this is just open-ended? No ABC?
I was just thinking about something else real quick.
I thought I just had to just answer randomly.
I'm tired today, man. I lost my train of thought. Okay, sorry. One of these things was the most common cause of World War II's planes being downed outside of battle. A, accidental friendly fire. B, bird strikes. Or C, pilots forgetting to lower the landing gear before landing.
Ooh. Bird strikes. B.
Answer, bird strikes. You're right. You're 2 for 4. Bird strikes were a serious problem in World War II, especially for bombers flying at low altitudes. A single bird could damage an engine or a windshield, forcing a plane to crash or turn back from its mission. Did you see the video going around this week from, I think it was a FedEx plane yesterday? Bird strike on a FedEx plane, and there were videos of it from the ground. It landed safely. It was a emergency landing. But the videos from the ground that people took showed the entire right engine just in flames as the thing flew over.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, just a bird strike. So,
Imagine a bat strike.
a bat strike
This
would
could-
be,
could
especially
bring
if
it
it had napalm strapped to it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That
We're not
seems
getting
way
away
worse.
with that one. That one, that would be very bad. This whole project got scrapped because of the atomic bombs. Because by the time that the bat project was ready, like they were really going to implement it. They had the bats, they had the bombs, they had the carriers that opened up and let the bats out.
Wow.
And it was only because as that project in 1945, as that project was getting ready to be deployed into war, that August was when we basically ended the war with Japan. So, yeah, they didn't end
Did you
up
say
needing
1945?
it. Yeah.
When Chevy Chase was only 2 years old.
2 years old. That's right. 2 years old.
So wait, now I got that one correct. I have to send you something from Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, something from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Bring it to, I'll be in Hershey on Thursday. So if you come in
All right.
Thursday, will you be there Thursday?
I'm going to bring you an Amish person.
Please do. My very own Amish person. Can we keep him, Mom? Please, can we keep him? I'm going to name him Jedediah. The very first time I ever went to Lancaster, I remember seeing a lot of Amish, and even though I'm from Ohio, not far from Amish country, my jaw dropped at the amount of Amish in Lancaster, and the fact that one of the first ones I saw was sitting on the curb outside of a cell phone store on a cell phone.
Yeah, that does happen. They sometimes skirt the rules. Like our Target has a place to tie up your horse.
Yeah.
And then you'll see like groups of Amish teens like in their buggies with like a system in it, like boom, 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 like in the back of the buggy, which
but
is
it's
funny.
just a guy yelling that.
Yeah, boom. Yeah, it was just a guy.
Megaphone,
Jedediah. That's the guy I'm getting you.
Yeah.
He does the bass.
He does.
And then like our Costco has a place to tie up your horse too. So I see a lot of Amish people shopping at Costco, and they're buying like a bunch of watermelons, and I'm like, don't you guys grow these? Like that's your thing.
We can't figure out seedless.
Exactly, they haven't figured it out. That might be it. I'll find out.
The English have figured out seedless, and we're going to Costco.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
More spitting, Ma.
There's a Dollar General on the way to one of Allie's horse barns that has a hitch and post for horses, and one time I drove by and was staring. I must have been staring because the Amish guy looked at me and waved, which I thought was really against their stuff. Like, I don't think they're allowed to wave to non-Amish, but he did. So, So if you're listening to this podcast, Mr. Wave Amish, thanks for listening. I appreciate you tuning in and subscribing in secret, sure. I assume. Maybe out in the barn you've got a charger. I don't know how this works. Yeah, I guess we can make fun of Amish on podcasts because they're not going to write in.
That's right.
I've
done shows. I've done shows for the Amish, and I feel like they have pretty good senses of humor.
I feel like I was just talking about this on a recent episode. You and I think did the same show, different years. It was like German Baptist, and it was like a grocery chain or something. Do you remember this? It was where?
Oh yeah, in like Central Pennsylvania. Yeah.
And it was the best. It was the best audience. I wasn't expecting it.
They were
really
a lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah.
I think you it's the middle of nowhere, and you're like the only show in town, and that's sometimes the best thing. It's like you're a big deal coming to their town.
Yeah, it's like doing a liberal arts college in the middle of Illinois.
Yeah.
When it's not noon. You done any noon colleges lately?
I have. I did a few recently, and the one they were not expecting me, but I just kind of took over their cafeteria space, and we had a good time. And then the next day, I drove to Iowa and did a show in the middle of nowhere, and we actually had a blast. It was really great. There was a bunch of jocks on one side.
Ooh.
and sometimes I can. That can go either way, but I went on the attack.
Good.
I went on the attack right away, and because something happened, and the one guy went, and I was like, he made like a fart sound, and I was like, oh, I thought you guys were in college, not in middle school. What is this, the JV squad? And they were like,
oh, huge. I love
and
it.
And then I didn't find out what sport they played, but then something came up about bowling, and one guy wooed from there. And I was like, wait, are you guys the bowling team? You know, like,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
the JV bowling team showed up, and they had a blast. So
That's
it was
really
actually really
good.
fun.
Yeah.
But it was like -0 temperatures,
Oh
and people still
man.
came out and saw it, which is great.
Yeah, I want to say the last 4 or 5 colleges I've done have been like really great crowds. They've been smaller, but not as small as the previous few years. Like
Yeah,
it feels like it's kind of getting back to normal. I hate to say that because normal was so long ago. So I'm not
right.
really sure if normal is a thing anymore. But like the shows itself, the audiences have been really stellar. So
Yeah,
I'm happy
I've
about
had some
that.
really nice schools lately, which is good. So yeah, I know you never know what you're going to walk into, but it's always the best when they're ready to have a good time.
Yeah. Well, you've done wonderful on this podcast. You're batting 500, but the question 5 is for all the marbles, which
Batten,
means
remember the bat?
you get a
Batten.
bat. What?
Remember you're
You're
sending me a bat?
batting 500. Bat. Oh, I get it. It
Yeah,
was a bat pun.
yeah.
It was. I didn't. I'm dude. I'm so
It's
tired
fine.
today.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It was a while ago. The people have already tuned out.
You can't expect me to remember your callbacks. The basically, if you get this one right, you're welcome back. If you don't, see ya. I'm not even gonna be
Mm.
friends with you anymore. Um,
Oh gosh. Okay.
during World War II, both sides came up with some truly bizarre and creative ideas like bat bombs and pigeon guided missiles. What's the most unconventional, or outside the box idea that you have had in your line of work? And this can be one that you've actually implemented or one that never saw the light of day.
Uh, so the end of my show, I do a routine that uses the song "Runaway" by Bon Jovi, and I heard that song, and I just like it's an earworm. It sticks with you. I listened to it. I had a 3 hour drive home. I listened to it over and over and over because I'm like, I got to do something with this. The original idea for that was I would balance a dustbuster on my nose that's running, and I would hold a box of tissues, and I would throw the tissues, and they get sucked into the dustbuster. This would be the big trick that works with this big song.
Yeah.
And I practiced it, and I did it in front of an audience, and it got nothing.
Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. No one, yeah, people just were like, "What is happening?" They were not into it at all, and I had to
Gosh.
scrap that idea. And then the routine that I did create with that was
Has
the
taken you
routine
all
that
over
is
the world.
it
The
has.
routine that so had the dustbuster idea worked that night, you might not be as successful right now. You might not be.
I would not have performed for 20,000 people at the Dallas Mavericks halftime show.
That's
I
right.
would not have been invited to go to Hong Kong to open up for Wiz Khalifa in a nightclub.
I want.
None of that would have been possible.
Unbelievable. Well, that is a correct answer. And do you have video of you doing the dustbuster bit?
I mean, no.
Is it
I
ever
think it
going
was
to see
like
the light of day again? Is this a thing that's still
maybe I'll
rattling
pull it
around?
out one time. I feel like it was a good idea that it just did. People were not. They're like, nope.
It is a good
Everyone just
idea.
everyone. That's what I thought too. But the whole audience decided the opposite.
I wonder if there would
They
be
were
a
like,
way
nope.
to switch the dustbuster from suck to blow at the end, and that's the finale.
They just all shoot out.
They all shoot out. Yeah.
Giant confetti.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Well, you've done very well. You are welcome back on the podcast again. You guys go check out Jonathan Burns online to see where he's performing near you. What's the website? Is it
iHeartBurns.com.
iHeartBurns.com.
Don't forget the I or the S. If you go to heartburn.com, that's Tums.
That's a Tums. Yeah, you don't want that one. Go to iHeartBurns.com and you can see where Jonathan's performing. He might be on a cruise ship. If you're cruise, he does a lot of Disney cruises, a lot of other cruise lines, and you might be able to see him performing on your ship.
Yes, I'm doing some public shows too coming up. I'll be in LA at the end of March, and I'll be in Las Vegas for a few days. So come check out, come see me do stuff.
Yes, absolutely, dude. Thank you so much for making the
I'll bring
time.
back the Dustbuster bit. Who knows?
Please do. If someone comes up to you after a show and asks about the Dustbuster bit because they listened to this podcast, I will be the happiest man in podcasting.
I'll do it. If they do, I will do it for them right there.
Turns out the happiest man in podcasting, not that happy. It's a low bar. a low, low bar. Jonathan Burns, it's always great to have you on, man.
Thank you for having me. One more time with the fireworks.
If you're wondering what that empty space was that I'm going to leave in the editing, it was him raising his thumbs and shooting off the fireworks somehow inexplicably on Zoom, I guess.
Yep.
Amazing to have you on. Oh, wait, when you do one, wait, that came up the other day when I did this and it happened, and so it's not happening now.
We're going to tell the Patreon people all about it after we're done here.
Okay, yeah, we're going to let them know what's going on. That's a little sales pitch for Patreon. It's a Zoom seminar now.
I'm making you tens and tens of dollars.
Please do. All right, man. I'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
That's all for this week. Thank you so much to Jonathan Burns for being my guest, and thanks to you for listening. Here's the voice of a hibernating Mexican free-tailed child.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. To listen to episodes ad-free and a week early, support us on Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. If you learned something just now that you didn't already know, go to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That helps us a ton, because that's how the algorithm works. I don't know what an algorithm is, but just do it. See you next week for a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True!
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help to make this show possible. Sean Brown, Joshua Endress, Dallas Ray, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Jim and Joanne Martin, Mitch and Andrew Joseph Kemplin, and the show's official Emperor, Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Finite Music Forge, and all audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.